Good evening. My name is Catherine Ramirez, and this is Applying Intervention to a Case Study. The case that we're reviewing is in regards to Jessica, her son John, and a little bit about her sister Sue, who is John's caretaker. So I'm going to delve right into some interventions that I think need to take place on both a macro and micro view. So the first thing we want to discuss, or I want to discuss, is Jessica's pay. Now, the problem with that is even though she only has a high school education, she is a nurse's assistant or a nurse's aide. Now, there are several millions of women who are in the healthcare system or healthcare workers who are making less than their counterparts. And over 1.5 million of those women are living in poverty, whether they're getting assistance from food stamps, housing, Medicaid, or not getting any assistance at all and not living in good health conditions. They're living in poverty and some below the poverty level. So I think the first thing we need to take a look at is trying to equalize that and really try and push for equality in pay for both men and women. So there's actually a bill in legislation right now which is recognizing the significance of equal pay and the disparity between wages paid to men and women. That is going to continue to fight, as we have continued to fight, for equality in pay. Not only is that is on a large, broad span, but I think there also needs to be some possible programs implemented in the work environment for lower income families to either get into certification programs, licensing programs, offer an extension so that way these women are getting educated to better their income. It is hard for single parents and lower income families to step outside their realm and find ways to make it better. I think if we start from what we have to work with on a closer level, then we can essentially start getting Jessica where she needs to be and continuously helping her progress. On the other end, another thing I want to discuss is John and his autism. So I know that in my previous video I discussed how there needs to be some implementing of what's taking place at school into what is taking place at home. As Jessica felt, there was no real progression in John's speech and occupational development. But there have been studies done that have shown with a family educator or teacher partnership that there has been progression with children with ASD. So with that, there needs to be good communication on both ends with the educators as well as the parents. So with that, John's teachers could essentially relay messages to Jessica as to what's taken place, where he stands, what he did that day, what he could do at home, as well as Jessica relaying and working with him, as well as Sue, because it isn't just parents, but it's also family. Sue could also be doing that as well, relaying to the educators, this is what John did today, this is where we're at, and vice versa. Just continue that communication and keep that good partnership so that way there is progression for John, and his environment is essentially what's bringing him up. There's also a bill in legislation right now in regards to that, and I think that will help the schools itself. That bill is Cultivating Learning Assistance for Student Success Act. And what that is that's actually going to give grants to secondary schools um, for technology assistive devices. Now, that's a very broad span and that's a very broad term. But essentially, some of the things uh, that consist of is um, academic and learning aids, and that's both electronic and non-electronic. There's vocational and pre-vocational aids. So these are all things that could essentially help John um, further his development and his progress. So I think that is another bill that needs to be reviewed and also looked at and really taken into consideration. These are two big things. Not just that, but I really think that the um, where it starts is with medical providers and also with educators, especially with low income families. It's hard enough that these families um, have a life where they have so much that they're trying to take on. Not saying that Jessica shouldn't be part of John's development, but I think it would be made a little bit easier if the information and sources are given to parents or families early on when there's detection, when there's, when they are diagnosed. Um, give them many resources to go to. There's many different links, there's many different groups, there's plenty of things that could be provided to parents, as well as educators being further educated in the types of programs there are and relaying these messages, especially in low income areas. So, those are two things that I think really need to be focused on and we really need to consider. And that's on a large level. It's involving the family, Jessica, educators, and the way we consider uh, value in women and men in the working environment. So, with all that being said, I have provided the links for the bills below, as well as some resources on some articles that would be very interesting to read, which discuss a study in regards to partnership, professional partnership between parents or family and teachers, as well as the long struggle of wage inequality, and that our article is actually in reference to increasing the minimum wage for healthcare workers. So um, I thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Hope you all have a great day.